The only mention of inflation in the budget and by yourself has been that CPI reduces by 0.75% because of what happens on energy bills. What about the rest of the spending? There must be a figure on what that does to inflation as well in terms of upward pressure.
Well, the Treasury advice and the commentary in the budget papers make it really clear that the budget that we designed, carefully calibrated and released last night, will address cost of living pressures rather than add to inflation. That advice is really clear. You're right that the combination of the measures in our energy plan are actually putting downward pressure on the inflation forecast in the budget. That's really important. And the other measures are not expected to add to these inflationary challenges. And the reason for that is because not all of this cost of living package hits the economy at once. The $14.6 billion cost of living package that I'm really proud of, that we released last night, is a 4-year number. It's very carefully targeted, very carefully calibrated to help people deal with cost of living pressures without making them worse.
Sure, but at the same time, the people it goes to, lower income Australians, as we know, they tend to spend money when it's available. So whilst not all that $14 billion is in this financial year, billions of it is. Childcare spending is as well. Is there, I know you mentioned Treasury advice, but is there a number somewhere that there must be some sort of element of upward inflationary pressure from that spending that you balance out and come out with a net effect, if you like?
That's not the Treasury's expectation, that it will add to the inflation challenge in our economy. The Treasury numbers in the budget are really clear. Inflation moderates over the next couple of years. Our energy plan puts additional downward pressure on that. That's clear in the budget papers as well. The Treasury does not expect our cost of living package to add to the inflation problem in our economy. It expects us to help people deal with some of those pressures. Yes, we're prioritising the most vulnerable people. There's help for Middle Australia as well, including early childhood education, as you mentioned. But the money doesn't hit the economy at once. It's carefully designed and calibrated and targeted, and that's why we feel very confident that we will help deal with this inflation challenge, not put extra pressure on it.
If it does, if despite that advice, inflation goes up and we have to see rate rises, would that budget be a failure?
Oh, no, of course I wouldn't see it that way, Tom. I wouldn't preempt future decisions of the Independent Reserve Bank, and it's not our expectation that this will put additional pressure on inflation. Inflation is moderating. That's welcome. We'd like it to moderate quicker, and that's why elements of our cost of living plan, like the energy relief that we are providing, is such an important part of our efforts to put downward pressure on inflation. So are our investments in the supply side and the economy. So is the substantial discipline and restraint that we've shown in the budget in banking almost all of the upward revision to revenue. These are all important ways that we are cognisant and addressing the inflation challenge in our economy. And that's why we are confident that we are helping to put downward pressure on inflation, not upward pressure on it.
So you've also mentioned, just finally, on stage 3 of the income tax cuts, you haven't deliberated on them at this budget. I'm just interested in your mindset. In a year's time, just before these take effect, is it your position that the default is they're in there and they'll stay there as is? Or will you, regardless of any economic situation, reassess these tax cuts and every element of them?
No, I think as you describe it, it's our default position, because we haven't changed our view on that. Legislated some time, as you rightly identify, it hasn't been a big part of our deliberations, hasn't really been any part of our deliberations for this budget. What we've tried to do instead is provide that cost of living relief, lay the foundations for future growth and do it in the most responsible way. The tax cuts don't come in for more than a year. We've got other priorities in the interim. We haven't changed our view. And in the context of this budget, we haven't discussed changing our view.
Got to leave it there. I know you got a bit on this morning. Treasurer, thanks for your time.
Appreciate it, Tom. Thanks.